how do we best describe you? You're a front office connoisseur. You've had all the type of experience.
Yeah,
Why don't you explain to our audience specifically?
Yeah, I don't know what you describe me as. I kind of jack of all trades at this point in time. No, probably a front office executive that now talks about the games of baseball, but doesn't agonize over who wins or loses on a nightly basis.
So that's kind of nice.
That's very nice.
So of all the spots, what was the most agonizing throughout your journey in the front office?
Colorado by far.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're playing baseball at 5280. I call it the 5280 experiment.
Yeah.
So that means 5,280 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
Sister knows that going to Boulder. She knows what that feels like.
Oh, yeah.
And so trying to figure out the quantum physics around rest and recovery, ball movement at home, no ball movement on the road from a hitting standpoint.
Yeah.
Pitchers react differently at home than differently on the road. It was really, really challenging. Can't say I ever figured it out, but man, it certainly was a challenge.
So that's something obviously you're thinking about when you're trying to figure out constructing a team, a roster. It's one of the many things that you have to think about. And I'll tell you what, that's not what people are thinking back in Baltimore, in Boston, or New York. There's different
that's the thing, is that unless you walk in those shoes, like the people after me or people before me, no one really understands. You know, traditionally I grew from underneath your dad's model in Baltimore in my early years.
Yeah.
Took that to Cleveland. And, you know, we talked a lot about roster construction. Never did we have to talk about the same issues that we talked about in Colorado on a consistent basis.
So you've had obviously just mentioned then, your background, spent time in Baltimore.
Yep.
Cleveland. So I think one of these big things, so Soto signed for a little bit of money.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, about half, I guess it's more than half of what the Orioles were sold for. And we're looking at big markets, small markets. You've had to work in these types of situations. And
never a large market, Ryan. Yeah. I never had the wherewithal, never, ever worked in a large market. I don't even know what that may feel like to spend that kind of money.
So you're the perfect person to explain all of this. So I try to tell people, Blake Snell had the offer out there, right? What was it, 5 years, $182 million, goes to the Dodgers. And yes, a team like Baltimore, a team that could be a smaller market, yeah, they could have an interest in them. But let's say the deals are similar. And you're looking at LA, you're looking at Boston and New York examples, and you have to explain then, all right, to a player that doesn't have connections to the city, why should you come here over somewhere else? In your mind, explain how hard it is to navigate with those.
It is.
Markets.
I think the Orioles have a little different, less of a challenging sell, because the core of that young club is so dynamic.
Yeah.
You're not trying to sell them on a vision of what you hope to become.
Yeah.
You kind of already there, and those guys are like, I wouldn't say the final pieces, but they're a big piece of what's missing to get them over the hump.
Yeah.
So that's a real compelling argument versus, you know, like Boston, where they are now.
Yeah.
They have a good collection of young players. They've got great young position players coming, but none of them have really like broken out completely yet at the big league level. So they are trying to sell them on a vision of what you might be able to come.
Yeah.
Now, saying that, I mean, I do think the Orioles have limitations, even with the new ownership group, which I think is tremendous for the city.
Right.
I mean, can they fish in the water? Some of these guys are going to actually be able to fish in. I'm not sure. So they've got to be very strategic about who they identify, and they got to move quickly, I think, before the trickle-down effect may take everybody off the board.
Yeah, and they have to be smart and strategic with what it's going to be. And plus, the other part of it, you mentioned the young nucleus, and then I got to play with a lot of those guys. I got to play with the Orioles, so I know them well. But also, when you get up to the majors, there's that grace period. Colton Cowser had a great year, but what's his growth there? What's Jackson Holliday's growth? And it could take time, could take whatever it may be, but there is going to be a little bit of growing pains. But having said that, you go out and get a free agent where it could take away some of those at-bats.
I think that's what the O'Neill – that's the conundrum for me, and that's the issue, Ryan. I'm not sure that how I would handle it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they actually have a great way to handle it right now, too.
Yeah.
Because like when Westbrook came up, he didn't get the everyday at bats.
Right.
You know, so Gunnar Henderson kind of rotated between three different positions.
Exactly.
So he didn't get the everyday at bats. I think they wanted to give Jackson the everyday at bats. I think it was very noticeable. He probably needed more time.
Yeah.
In the evaluatory process of finishing off at AAA. But I mean, Kerstead doesn't need to do anything more in Norfolk.
No,
there's not a level between,
does not.
He does not a level between Norfolk and Baltimore. So he's going to have to figure some things out.
Yeah.
But to do that, is you're right, they've got to commit the at-bats.
Yeah.
Colby Mayo needs at-bat. He doesn't need to do anything more in Norfolk either.
Yeah.
So, like, something in that logjam has to break. And I'm sure they're working on that now, but they've got to let those stallions really run. They need to let them run.
And that was the part also why I think Gunnar Henderson had a little bit more of mistakes at shortstop. And I tell people the organizational structure being there, they wanted their guys to be multidimensional. So Gunnar wasn't playing shortstop every day in the minor leagues. And then his first year of playing the position for 162 is at the big league level in the American League East. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, Westberg, if you want him at third, Gunnar at short, Jackson at second, amazing. Give them their reps to do that. But then something's got to give with something. Do you think that sooner than later they're going to have to make a move and maybe make another trade like they did kind of for Corbin last year?
I really think they're going to need to do that at some point in time here soon.
Yeah.
Maybe they're in the Crochet situation, which is a great fit for them. I mean, I get, quite honestly, Ryan, why they don't want to trade Colby and Kierstead. Like, those young, impactful position players, they're not picking up top anytime soon.
Yeah.
They're not going to get those guys deep in the draft.
Yeah.
So I understand why they coveted to hold on to him, and I'm sure that the industry is not jumping all over the place to get Mountcastle or Hearn right now, even though I'm a huge Mountcastle fan. He's just like deeper into arbitration years and closer to free agency. So they're in a little bit of a box. Personally, for me, I would just spend money if I had it to add to rotation as much as I possibly can. They've got Felix Bautista coming back for the back end of their bullpen. So, I mean, I'd try to add 2 starters if I could. One like Evaldi for me that could be my lead in the rotation. And then another guy, I'd love to see them with Manaea in their rotation. I think that bookends then and lets the rest of the rotation breathe a little bit and hold on to those core guys, but I'd play them. Like, they're obviously not going to re-sign Santander because they signed O'Neill. And O'Neill's a really productive offensive player if he can stay healthy. So I get that signing. But the rest of the guys, you really do need to play, and you need to start playing them this year.
So fair to say we think that Tony, big market. New York would be a good fit if he were to go there. And it seems like reports coming out, Boston, Toronto, New York, whoever it is, what O'Neill got, that price point's going to be a lot higher. At least.
I think Tony's going to go for me. Like, he was a Rule 5 draft. Though money's relative in our game, as we know. We talk about it. He's already made a lot of money, but he hasn't made that breakthrough contract.
Yeah.
I personally feel he's going to get offered a contract in Toronto that he will have a tough time turning down.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to see what happens. Before I let you go then, can you explain to people what are some of your fondest moments of the winter meetings? I don't care about maybe getting the deals done. We talked about that video that keeps popping up of the gentleman walking right into the water at this place.
Yeah.
What's a good Dan
signing
memory of the winter meetings? What do you got?
Honestly, has nothing to do with players traded.
That's fantastic.
It had more to do with what went on in the dynamics of our room. Like, Clint Hurdle, if he wasn't a major league manager, should have been like working on the circuit as a comedian.
Yeah.
And so just the storytelling amongst the scouts in the room and sharing stories, and Clint, just making people laugh on a consistent basis. We got more scout development and player development teaching done in those rooms about organizational philosophy and what we needed to do than any meetings I've been a part of. Even if we didn't accomplish anything at the meetings from a personnel standpoint, we really accomplished a whole lot, but did it in a really unique baseball environment. I'm not sure that goes on anymore in our game today. And I do miss those days because it's just a bunch of baseball people sitting around talking about the game of baseball.
Well, I think that's where just had this conversation, Brad. We had this yesterday, and we even talked with, John Morosi, and we were talking about old stories and things that even my dad told me. You learn so much from your peers when you just sit in a room and you hear an idea, you hear a thought, and it's also having a pulse of that. You got to manage people at the end of the day. You can have all these metrics that get thrown out there, which is important. I'm not downplaying that, but it's the people and how you're able to work together to try to get something else. And it's the camaraderie.
And that starts in meetings like that.
Yeah.
You develop a sense of communication and trust. You each have each other's back. You debate, but you do it respectfully.
Yeah.
I learn every day. Your uncle's taught me more about the game of baseball working here at the network than maybe I've learned from anybody in the game. Like, Billy's a baseball savant.
He truly
really is a baseball savant. So it's like having the Billy Ripkens in the room educating everybody else about the game of baseball, but having willing recipients to learn those lessons.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. And I really miss that part about the agents and all that. I don't miss any of that, but I miss that.
You don't miss the prices getting driven up. You think you have something done, and then you're one to pull
Honestly,
your hair out.
I never got to fish in those waters anyway. So
you're fine.
I always went down the list and said, okay, that's the guy.
Okay, you're not going to be available. That's fine. Last thing, one of your moments in Baltimore. You got one from time that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean,
well, one of
the 83 World Series. I mean, I got a ring from the 83 World Series. I can honestly tell you I did absolutely nothing to deserve that ring. So the moment that I remember most is that we were driving from Philly back to Baltimore, and the line of cars, as soon as we crossed into Maryland, lined up on the side of the road on the bus was just, I went, oh, this is easy to do. Yeah, like that's, I didn't get back there for a very, very long time after that. So
you know what?
Really hard.
I had that same conversation with my dad where his second year in the league, you're an MVP, you win the World Series, and in his mind, he goes, well, I'll be back there again. And now it's 2024. The Orioles have not gone back to the World Series. It's been 41 years. And for him, I think the Orioles only had a run of 96, 97 in his playing career of going back to the playoffs.
And 97 is what we beat them that year because I was in Cleveland.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Tony Fernandez. Well, your dad appreciated that because we ran a first, third bunt defensive play that won that game for us.
I've heard about it, Dan.
And
I've heard about it.
And I don't know if we executed that play all year long, but man, we executed that well today. So I was torn on that one because I love the Orioles situation and their fan base, but I was also very happy to go back to the World Series.
Yeah, that, and you guys tagged Armando Benitez in 2 moments there, and Mike Mussina had that unbelievable effort in the final game of the series.
We had Armando's pitches.
Yeah, oof. Did you actually?
We did.
So what was he doing?
Tipping his glove.
So tipping in the glove, was it?
Yep.
That's tough.
Yeah.
And people were looking for that, but that was a tough moment because
back then people didn't look at it that much, though.
Not as much. Now, when they got every camera in different angle, well, I wish for a different result. But Dan, you got to run around.
Yep.
Are you going to be around later if I can just bother you, catch up?
I'm on from 5 to 7, but I'm here the rest of another 2 days after this.
Okay, I'll be here tomorrow.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. And best of luck. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And again, tell your dad I said hi.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
When you do talk to him eventually.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to talk to him now, and I got to go. What else do I need to know about Dan?
Yeah, great.
That's what we're going to
tell you that. Yeah, I have some good stories.
Awesome.
Some stories about the basketball pickup games.
Oh, gosh. Did you get in on that, too?
Well, he just made fun of me because he dominated me so much, and he tried to beat me up physically every time that I went over to play.
Yeah, he's a jackass when it comes to that.
Yeah, he was just trying to send a point. Like, he needed to send a point to me. I'm a 5'11", 6-foot point guard. He didn't need to beat me up.
It's intentional. He did the same thing to me when I was 9 years old. So, all right, Dan, appreciate you.